Is this my granddaughter, Alien Queen's daughter, came back with her human husband, and a child. The twilight sky over Urindor was heavy with shadow and silver light. Its floating spires stretched into the dim clouds, each one a monument to power, secrets, and ancient bloodlines. The kingdom had once been full of laughter and celebration, but now the halls of the alien royal palace were filled with whispers, tension, and fear. It had been years since the Princess Lyra had vanished, leaving her mother, Queen Navara, to rule alone over a kingdom slowly crumbling from distrust and internal strife. No one had expected her return. A distant rumble echoed across the palace gates. Servants, nobles, and guards alike froze, eyes turning to the horizon. Emerging from the shadows was a procession unlike any Urindor had seen. At the center walked Lyra, taller now, more radiant than anyone remembered. Her hair, a silver-gold hue, caught the last rays of twilight, and her gaze was steady, calm, yet burdened with a quiet sorrow. By her side was a man, walking carefully as if each step on alien soil were a test. His hair was dark, his eyes thoughtful, and though he was human, he carried himself with a courage that was impossible to ignore. In Lyra's arms, a small child clutched her shoulder, a boy with eyes that shimmered like twilight itself. The palace guard stiffened. Whispers erupted like fire across the courtyard. It can't be, she's back. Her husband, a human, impossible. And that child, the prophecy. The gate opened slowly, and Lyra stepped forward, holding her head high. Elias, her human husband, followed carefully behind, keeping one protective hand on Kale, their son. The child looked around with curiosity, unaware of the weight his presence carried, his small fingers brushing against the shimmering stones of the palace floor. Queen Navara sat upon her throne, her posture regal, her eyes cold and calculating. But beneath the surface, something stirred, a mixture of fear, longing, and disbelief. She had imagined this reunion countless times, but never with a human standing beside her daughter, never with a child whose blood carried both human fragility and alien magic. "Lyra," Navara's voice was low, measured, but it trembled ever so slightly. "Is it truly you?" Lyra knelt slightly, bowing her head out of respect and fear. "Mother," she said softly, "I have come back not to defy you, but to return to the place I belong." The court held its breath. Every eye watched, every whisper paused. The queen's gaze lingered on Kale, the boy who might either save their family or shatter it completely. "Your husband," Navara's tone sharpened, "and your child, you bring strangers into my court?" Lyra's eyes met her mother's. "He is no stranger. He is the father of my child, and he loves our son with a devotion I have never known in any other being." Elias bowed his head respectfully. "I do not seek power, your majesty, only the safety of my family and the chance to serve your kingdom in any way I can." Navara studied him, seeing his sincerity, but also the undeniable difference between his human form and her alien lineage. The court murmured. Some whispered admiration for his bravery, others suspicion of his intentions. Lyra noticed the tension, but she held her gaze steady, refusing to give in to fear. "You have been gone many years," Navara said finally. "The kingdom has changed. You may return, but do not think you can claim the place you left behind without proving your loyalty." Lyra nodded. "I understand, Mother. I am ready to do what is required." The queen's gaze softened just a fraction. There was pride there, but also a painful ache. She remembered her daughter as a small child, full of laughter, curiosity, and boundless energy. That child had vanished, leaving a void in the throne and in her heart. Now before her stood a woman shaped by two worlds, carrying a child whose existence was both miracle and mystery. The court slowly settled, but whispers continued to ripple through the halls. Some feared that the child, born of human and alien blood, was a threat. Others wondered if he could be the key to fulfilling the old prophecy, the one that spoke of a hybrid child whose power would either save or doom the royal line. Lyra led her family deeper into the palace. The corridors, once familiar, now felt strange, echoing with ghosts of the past. She touched the walls gently, remembering the times she had run through these halls as a child, laughing and dreaming of adventures far beyond the palace walls. Now the halls seemed alive with a different energy, responsive to Kale's presence. The boy's small fingers brushed against a carved wall, and a faint ripple of light moved along the stones, unnoticed by the adults but felt by those sensitive to magic. Navara watched this in silence, her heart racing. She had always feared the prophecy, and now the first hints of it were undeniable. Her grandson's presence alone could awaken forces long forgotten. That evening, as twilight deepened into night, Lyra and Elias were escorted to a private chamber. The room overlooked the city, its glowing towers shimmering like distant stars. Kale, exhausted from the journey, slept in Elias' arms. Lyra leaned against the balcony, her thoughts heavy. "Elias," she said quietly, "do you feel it? The air here, it is different. The palace, it is alive, but it is wary of us." Elias nodded. "I can feel it. It is as if the stones themselves are watching us. But we cannot let fear guide us. We have each other and we have Kale. That must be enough." Lyra smiled faintly. "I hope it is, but my mother, I see the conflict in her eyes. She does not know whether to embrace me or push me away. And I do not know if I can ever return fully to this world, or fully to the human one. I am torn, Elias, between duty and love, between two worlds that may never fully accept me." Elias took her hand. "We will find a way together. Whatever challenges come, we will face them as a family. And Kale, he is a bridge between both worlds. Perhaps he will teach them what we cannot yet show." Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his warmth. Outside, the palace lights shimmered and the wind whispered through the towers. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the quiet, a low, rumbling echo like the beating of a great heart. Lyra straightened, sensing danger and purpose intertwined. She felt Kale stir in Elias' arms, and then faintly she saw it. The walls of the palace began to shimmer, as though reacting to her son's presence. Nivara's voice echoed in her mind, a whisper carried by magic through the palace corridors. "The child, the prophecy, it begins now." Lyra's heart pounded. She looked at Elias, whose eyes mirrored her fear and determination. "We are not safe here," she whispered. "Something is awakening, and it is tied to Kale." That night sleep eluded her. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper a warning. Outside the palace, the world of Urindor remained still, yet a storm was gathering. One that would test the bonds of family, the strength of love, and the courage of a mother who had returned to a kingdom she barely remembered. As Lyra held her sleeping son, she whispered a vow. "I will protect you, Kale. I will not let this world break you or us, no matter the cost." But even as she spoke, a shadow flickered along the palace walls, a presence ancient and silent, watching the return of the princess, the human, and the child. And in the heart of the palace, Queen Nivara sat in quiet contemplation, torn between fury, fear, and a mother's longing. The night deepened and the prophecy stirred. Somewhere in the darkness, a power long dormant began to awaken, and the fate of Urindor, human and alien alike, hung in fragile balance. The return of the princess had begun, but the story of love, loyalty, and danger was only just unfolding. Cliffhanger. In the dead of night, the palace walls shimmered again, responding to Kale's silent, dream-filled movements. And far above, unseen by all, a shadow whispered his name. "Kale," it hissed. "You are the key, you are the beginning and the end." The dawn over Urindor brought a pale light that washed over the floating spires, casting long shadows across the palace. Inside, the court was already restless. News of Lyra's return had spread quickly through the city, and nobles, advisors, and palace guards whispered in hushed tones about the human interloper and the hybrid child who might change the kingdom forever. Lyra stood in the private garden, Kale in her arms, letting the cool breeze play with her hair. The child's tiny fingers brushed against the leaves, leaving a faint shimmer in their wake. Magic hummed softly beneath his touch, subtle but unmistakable, as if the air itself recognized the child's power. Lyra's heart clenched. She had known Kale was special, but seeing it manifest in quiet, delicate ways made her realize how fragile and dangerous their situation truly was. Elias approached silently, his human eyes scanning the horizon. "Do you feel it?" he asked, his voice low. "The air, it's watching him." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the boy. "Yes, he is not like any child I have ever known. He carries both our worlds within him. I fear what others will see and what they will do when they realize what he can become." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft click of boots on stone. Nivara stepped into the garden, her long cloak sweeping behind her. She moved with the grace of a queen, but her eyes were sharper than any blade. Lyra felt a mix of fear and longing at seeing her mother, remembering the child who once clung to her hand in this very garden. "Mother," Lyra said gently, "thank you for meeting us here." Nivara's expression remained unreadable. "Do not mistake civility for trust, Lyra. she replied, her voice even but her eyes flickered with something unspoken. "I have questions, many questions, and I expect honest answers. Why have you returned now? Why bring him and the child into my kingdom?" Lyra took a deep breath. "I have returned because I could not ignore the call of this world, my home. I have brought Elias because he is my partner, and he has stood by me through dangers you cannot imagine. And Kale," she held her son closer, "Kale is the hope that binds both our worlds together. He is not a threat, he is a bridge." Navara studied the child, her golden eyes narrowing. There was magic in him, powerful, unpredictable, and ancient. She knew the legends. A child born of human and alien blood could awaken forces no one could control. And yet, there was something in his presence that softened her heart, something that reminded her of her own lost daughter. "You speak of hope," Navara said slowly, "but hope is fragile, and your time in the human world, do you expect me to believe you have not changed, that you have not been influenced by human weakness?" Lyra's gaze did not falter. "I am changed, yes," she admitted. "But that change does not make me less your daughter. It makes me stronger, more aware of what it means to love and protect. I bring that knowledge here, not to defy you, but to serve the kingdom and our family." A silence fell between them, filled only by the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the palace wards. Finally, Navara nodded slightly, though her eyes remained guarded. "Very well, you may stay, but know this, my court watches everything. Any misstep, any sign of weakness, and I will not hesitate." Lyra inclined her head in understanding. "I would not expect less." The rest of the morning was filled with subtle examinations and introductions. Elias met with advisors, learning the rules of a court steeped in magic and tradition. He observed the tension between factions, nobles who remembered Lyra's childhood as a time of peace, and those who resented her for leaving, seeing her as a traitor for crossing into the human world. Kale, meanwhile, explored the palace quietly, touching walls, statues, and fountains. Each interaction left faint ripples of magic, barely noticeable to most, but to Lyra and her mother the effects were unmistakable. Later, Lyra and Elias returned to their chambers where they could finally speak freely. "Do you see it?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "He is not just a child, he is something more, something powerful. And if the court senses it, there will be those who fear him and those who will try to use him." Elias nodded, concern etching his face. "I see it, but you are strong, Lyra, and I will stand with you. We will protect him together, no matter what." Lyra smiled faintly, resting her head against his shoulder. "I hope it will be enough." That evening, Lyra ventured into the palace library, a vast chamber of floating books, magical scrolls, and artifacts older than memory. She sought knowledge, anything that could help her understand Kale's abilities and the prophecy surrounding him. As she moved through the aisles, a shadow shifted behind her. She froze, sensing a presence. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steady but wary. From the darkness stepped a figure she had known since childhood, Aelric, her childhood protector and a noble warrior of the court. He had grown taller, stronger, his presence commanding. There was an unspoken tension between them, memories of shared adventures and unvoiced feelings lingering in the air. "You should not be wandering alone," Aelric said, his voice low. "This place, the palace, it is watching you, and it is watching the child." Lyra nodded. "I know. But I must learn what I can. Kale, he is special, I can feel it." Aelric stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Special or not, he will attract danger. The factions in this court are not blind. Some will try to control him, some will try to destroy him. You must be careful." Lyra felt a surge of gratitude and warmth at his concern, mixed with a flicker of forbidden longing. "I trust you, Aelric, but this is bigger than any of us. I do not know if trust alone will be enough." Aelric placed a hand gently on her shoulder, an anchor in the storm of her thoughts. "Then we must do more than trust. We must prepare, and we will together." That night the palace was quiet, but the air thrummed with unease. Kale stirred in his sleep, small hands moving as though touching something unseen. The walls of the palace seemed to respond, shimmering faintly in the darkness. Lyra watched him, fear and love warring within her. "I do not know if the world is ready for him," she whispered. "And I do not know if I am ready either, but I will not let anything happen to him, not while I breathe." Elias placed a hand over hers. "You are strong, Lyra, he is strong, and together we are stronger than any force that would try to harm us. Trust in that." Before sleep could claim her, Lyra felt a chill brush against her skin, a whisper of movement that was neither human nor entirely alien. She turned toward the source, but the hallway was empty. A shiver ran down her spine. Something was awakening in the palace, drawn by Kale's presence. Something ancient, powerful, and long forgotten. The following day, the court gathered for the ceremonial presentation of Lyra and her family. Nobles lined the halls, eyes sharp with curiosity, fear, and suspicion. Whispers followed them like a tide. Human blood, hybrid child, what does this mean for the throne? Kale, held in Lyra's arms, gazed at the assembly with wide, innocent eyes. And yet, as the ceremonial lights reflected off the floating crystals, faint ripples of energy emanated from him, brushing against the robes and hair of those nearby. Several court mages stiffened, sensing a power they could not fully understand. Nivara's eyes never left her daughter. She observed Kale closely, noting the faint magic that pulsed like a heartbeat around him. Her heart both ached and raced. This child was her granddaughter, yet he was unlike any royal blood she had ever known. And in that instant, a fear she could not name took hold. If Kale's power awakened fully, it could either secure their dynasty or destroy it forever. The ceremony proceeded, but the tension was palpable. No one dared speak freely, and even the most confident nobles avoided direct eye contact with the hybrid child. Lyra felt the weight of their scrutiny and the danger that surrounded her family. She exchanged a glance with Elias, who squeezed her hand in silent reassurance. They would face this together, no matter the cost. As night fell once more, Lyra returned to her chambers, exhausted yet restless. She held Kale close, studying his face, his small features mirroring both human warmth and alien elegance. She whispered a vow into the darkness. "I will protect you, Kale. I will teach you to use your gifts wisely, and I will not let fear rule over us, no matter what comes." From the shadows of the chamber, a faint shimmer appeared, almost like a reflection, almost like a shadow. Kale stirred, sensing it, but did not cry. Lyra's heart tightened. Something unseen was observing them, something ancient and patient. The palace, the prophecy, the court, it was all alive with whispers of what was to come. And somewhere, far beyond the palace walls, the world seemed to hold its breath. Cliffhanger, as Lyra drifted toward sleep, she felt a sudden, powerful tremor. Kale's small hands glowing with light, touching the air as if reaching for something unseen. Outside in the palace corridors, shadows shifted and whispered, carrying a single word. "Kale, awaken!" The palace of Urindor had never felt so heavy with whispers. Every corridor seemed alive with speculation, every chamber seemed to pulse with secrets. Lyra moved through the halls with Kale in her arms, Elias at her side, but the weight of scrutiny was relentless. Factions within the court watched them with cold calculation. Some saw Kale as a miracle, a bridge between human and alien, and a hope for the future. Others saw him as a threat, a child whose very existence could unravel centuries of power and tradition. Lyra had learned to sense the tension almost instinctively. Every glance, every murmur, every shift in posture revealed the loyalties and fears of those around her. She tried to focus on Kale, whose small hands now traced patterns of light in the air, his magic responding to the quiet heartbeat of the palace. But even the child's innocent curiosity carried consequences. Elias walked beside her, ever vigilant. "They watch him too closely," he whispered. "Some do not see the child, they see opportunity." Lyra's brow furrowed. "And opportunity often turns into danger. I fear what some will do if they believe they can control him." Their fears were not unfounded. In the council chambers, a group of nobles gathered in secrecy. They spoke in hushed tones, voices low and tense. "The child's power is unlike anything we have seen," said one noble, a tall figure with sharp, calculating eyes. "If we guide him, we could restore the strength of the throne and secure our own positions." Another, older and more cautious, shook his head. "Or he could destroy everything. Hybrid blood carries unpredictability. The prophecy warns of a child who could either save or ruin the kingdom." A third voice, young and eager, added, "But if Lyra cannot control him, we must intervene. The throne cannot fall into chaos because of her human influence." Back in the palace, Lyra met her mother, Queen Nivara, in a private hall of mirrors that reflected both light and shadow. The queen's expression was unreadable, but her eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. "Lyra," Nivara began, "I have heard whispers, doubts, fears. Some say your time among humans has made you soft, vulnerable. Others speak of your child's power as if it were a weapon." Lyra took a deep breath. "I cannot deny that Kale is powerful, mother, but I will not let anyone use him. Not as a weapon, not as a pawn. He is my son, and he is our future. I need your trust, not just your caution. Navara's lips pressed into a thin line. Trust is earned, Lyra. You must prove to this court that your loyalty is absolute and that the child's power will not threaten the kingdom. Lyra nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. I understand, and I will prove it. Days passed, and the tension in the palace grew. Kale's abilities became more noticeable. He could sense emotions, manipulate light, and even influence the smallest shifts in the magical wards that protected the palace. One evening, during a formal gathering in the Grand Hall, Kale's curiosity triggered an unexpected ripple. The candles flickered, shadows danced along the walls, and the floating crystals above hummed in resonance with his energy. The courtiers gasped, some recoiling in fear, others whispering about the prophecy. Navara's gaze was sharp, yet a flicker of pride shone through her apprehension. She recognized the same spark in Kale that she had seen in Lyra as a child, a power that could either illuminate or destroy everything it touched. Elias stepped forward, gently guiding Kale's hands away from the crystals. It is okay, he said softly. You are learning, little one, but you must be careful. Not everyone understands your gift. Lyra reached for Kale, her expression both gentle and firm. Yes, Kale. You are special, but you must listen. This palace is full of eyes and hearts that may not wish you well. As the days passed, Lyra realized that Kale's presence had awakened something ancient in the palace. Objects moved faintly when he approached, wards shimmered in response to his touch, and long dormant corridors seemed to hum with energy. Even Navara noticed the subtle changes, though she rarely spoke of them aloud. Lyra sought guidance from Aelric, her childhood protector. He had become more than a guardian. He was a confidant, a reminder of the world she had once known before leaving for the human realm. We need to prepare, Aelric said one evening as they walked along the palace ramparts, Kale asleep in Lyra's arms. The court is fractured, and not all eyes upon us are friendly. There are those who would see the child as a tool, not as a person, and there are enemies beyond these walls who may sense his awakening. Lyra's heart tightened. I know, but I cannot isolate him forever. He must grow, learn, and live as a child, even if that means facing danger, Aelric nodded. Then we must ensure he is not alone. He will need protection, guidance, and, perhaps, alliances that even your mother cannot foresee. The weight of responsibility pressed upon Lyra. She had returned to the palace to reunite with her family, but now she understood that her return had also unleashed forces that could not be contained. And in the shadows, unseen eyes were watching, waiting for a chance to strike. Tensions escalated when a rival faction within the court confronted Lyra during a council meeting. They accused her of bringing human influence into the kingdom, undermining traditions, and potentially endangering the throne with Kale's untested abilities. You have been gone too long, one noble declared, his voice sharp. You have been shaped by the weak human world. How can we trust that your child born of human blood will not bring ruin to Earendor? Lyra's eyes blazed. Kale is not a weapon, he is a child. And I will not allow anyone to use him for their ambitions or their fears. You may see human influence, but you cannot see the love, the care, and the responsibility we carry. He is my son, and I will protect him no matter the cost. The chamber fell into tense silence. Even Navara did not interrupt, though her gaze lingered on her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. After the meeting, Lyra returned to her chambers, exhaustion heavy on her shoulders. Elias followed, placing a reassuring hand on her back. They cannot understand yet, he said softly, but they will in time, and if they do not, we will face them together. Lyra nodded, leaning into his strength. I hope you are right, but I fear that some will act before understanding, and Kale, he may not be safe for long. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Lyra found herself alone in the palace courtyard, the air thick with the scent of alien blossoms and the faint hum of magic. Kale toddled beside her, his small hands tracing patterns in the glowing dust. Suddenly, a faint ripple moved along the ground, and Kale's eyes widened. Do you see that? Lyra whispered, kneeling to his level. Kale pointed toward a dark corner of the courtyard. There, a shadow moved unnaturally, flickering in and out of sight. It was silent, patient, and ancient. Lyra's heart raced. She had felt something awakening in the palace, but now it seemed more tangible, more dangerous. Aelric appeared beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. It senses him, he said quietly. Not malicious yet, but curious, and anything curious about Kale could become dangerous if left unchecked. Lyra swallowed hard. We cannot hide him forever, but I do not know how to prepare him for this, for a world that does not understand him, or for enemies we cannot see. Aelric placed a firm hand on her shoulder. You are stronger than you think, and he is stronger than anyone suspects, but you must teach him wisely. The court, the palace, and forces beyond these walls, they are watching. That night, Lyra lay beside Chaol as he slept, his small body radiating warmth and quiet power. She watched him, imagining the life he might have, one full of joy, freedom, and understanding. But she knew that such a life was not guaranteed. Danger loomed closer with every passing hour. Elias sat quietly beside her, holding her hand. You are not alone, he said softly. Whatever comes, we face it together, and Chaol, he will grow into the child he is meant to be with our guidance and love. Lyra nodded, tears threatening to spill. I wish it could be simpler, that he could be a normal child with no prophecy, no danger, no fear. Elias brushed a gentle kiss across her forehead. Normal is not in our world anymore. But love, courage, and loyalty, that is what will keep him safe, and that is what will guide us all. Outside, the palace shimmered under the starlight, every corridor, chamber, and spire alive with faint, magical resonance. The prophecy stirred. Chaol's energy pulsed subtly through the palace, and somewhere in the shadows, ancient eyes observed him. A whisper drifted through the halls, unheard by anyone but those attuned to magic. The child awakens, and with him the fate of Earendor will be decided. The next day, Lyra and Elias attended a gathering in the northern wing of the palace. Nobles, advisors, and mages watched Chaol with guarded fascination. Some were openly curious, while others wore masks of politeness over hidden fear. Chaol, sensing the tension, reached out to a floating crystal above him. Light rippled from his tiny hands, filling the room with a soft glow. The mages gasped. Even Navara, standing at the far end of the hall, felt a thrill of both pride and fear. The child was not merely powerful, he was extraordinary. One of the elder mages stepped forward, his voice low and measured. This child, he is a being of both worlds. His magic is not fully understood. It is a gift and a warning. The balance of Earendor may rest upon him, but we must proceed carefully. Lyra's heart tightened. Yes, she whispered, we must protect him, and we must teach him wisely. Nothing else matters. As she spoke, a faint shadow flickered across the walls, silent, deliberate. It lingered for a moment before disappearing, unseen by most. But Lyra felt it, an unspoken threat that would soon challenge everything she loved. Cliffhanger. That night, as Chaol slept in his chamber, a sudden surge of energy pulsed through the palace. Objects trembled, lights flickered, and a distant door creaked open by itself. From the shadows, a voice whispered, cold and ancient. The time has come, the child must choose. The palace of Earendor had never seemed so alive and yet so foreboding. Magic hummed in every stone, every corridor, and even in the air they breathed. Since Chaol's subtle awakening, the palace had been restless, as if it sensed that a greater force was stirring. Shadows lingered longer than usual, whispers drifted from empty halls, and the floating spires seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Lyra could feel it the moment she stepped into the courtyard at dawn. Chaol clutched her hand, his small eyes wide as if he sensed something beyond their understanding. Elias followed, his gaze scanning the palace walls. Something was coming, something ancient, and Lyra knew they had little time to prepare. Do you feel it? Lyra whispered, holding Chaol close. Elias nodded grimly. It's more than the palace, something outside, waiting, patient, dangerous. Chaol tugged at Lyra's sleeve, his small hands glowing faintly. Light rippled around him, brushing against the walls and the fountain nearby. Lyra gasped. He had not yet learned to control the power fully, and every burst, no matter how small, sent a tremor through the palace wards. Inside the throne room, Queen Navara convened a secret council. Only the closest advisors and loyal nobles were present, their faces tense. The child's power grows, Navara began, her voice steady but commanding. We must act carefully. There are those who see opportunity in him, but there are also enemies waiting beyond these walls, forces we have not faced in centuries. One of the elder mages spoke, his voice trembling slightly. The prophecy, it speaks of a hybrid child whose blood will awaken the curse long bound to the royal line. If uncontrolled, he could destroy the palace and perhaps the kingdom itself. Navara's gaze hardened. Then we must guide him. Lyra will teach him, and I will oversee. He will be protected, and the kingdom will endure, but anyone who challenges this will answer to me. Even as she spoke, a ripple of cold energy passed through the throne room. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls, and the council shivered, sensing the presence of something powerful and malevolent. That evening, Lyra and Elias took Kale to the northern gardens. Aelric joined them, moving silently beside the trio. The gardens, illuminated by floating lanterns and glowing flowers, felt safer than the palace halls, but Lyra knew the peace was fragile. "Kale," she said gently, kneeling before her son, "you have power, but you must learn to control it. You must understand that not everyone will see your gifts as a blessing." Kale looked at her with wide eyes and reached toward a glowing flower. Light shimmered from his hands, lifting the petals slightly, as if responding to his will. Lyra smiled faintly, pride and worry mingling in her heart. Aelric's gaze was sharp. "He is growing stronger every day. The court watches, yes, but there are forces that do not wait for permission. Something ancient is drawn to him." Elias frowned. "We've seen shadows, whispers, are they dangerous?" "Not yet," Aelric admitted, "but they are patient, and patience can be deadly. Kale must be ready." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She sat in the balcony chamber, staring at the starlit spires. Kale slept peacefully in Elias' arms, but she could feel the currents of magic moving through the palace like living threads. Something was awakening. A sudden, cold wind swept through the balcony. Lyra felt it like a finger tracing her spine. A shadow materialized before her, dark, indistinct, yet powerful and alive. She gasped. "Lyra," a voice hissed, ancient and cold, "the child, he cannot hide forever. The time has come, I have waited, and now I will claim what is mine." Lyra's heart pounded. She recognized the voice from the legends her mother had whispered as a child. The enemy who had cursed the royal bloodline centuries ago had returned. Elias moved to her side, protective and resolute. "We face it together," he said. Lyra nodded, gripping his hand. "We cannot let it touch Kale, not him, not our family." The shadow withdrew silently, leaving behind only a chill and a sense of warning. The next morning, Navara summoned Lyra and Elias. "The enemy has returned," she said, her voice heavy with both fear and determination. "The curse long bound to this kingdom stirs once more. The child is the key, he is the target." Lyra's eyes widened. How do we stop it?" "We prepare," Navara replied firmly. "Kale must be protected, but he must also learn you cannot hide him forever. And you cannot fight this enemy alone." Lyra glanced at Elias. "We are together, but how will we protect him from something we cannot even see?" "You will have guidance," Navara said, "and strength you did not know you possessed. The time for fear is over." Over the following days, the family trained. Kale learned to control small bursts of magic, guided by Lyra, Elias, and Aelric. The palace became a classroom, a battlefield, and a sanctuary all at once. Each day, Kale's power grew, and with it, the attention of both allies and enemies. One evening, while practicing in the northern gardens, Kale accidentally sent a ripple of energy across the courtyard. Statues shifted slightly, fountains trembled, and a hidden door in the far wall creaked open. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a being of shadow, ancient and terrifying. Lyra stepped in front of Kale, Elias at her side, and Aelric drew his sword, its blade glowing faintly. "You will not harm him," Lyra said firmly, her voice steady. The shadow figure paused, considering her. "I do not seek to harm yet, I seek to claim. The child's blood, it can break the curse, and I will have it." Kale trembled slightly, sensing the presence of the enemy. His hands glowed faintly, light shimmering and pulsing in rhythm with his fear. Elias tightened his grip on Lyra's hand. "We will not let you take him," he said, his voice resolute. The shadow retreated, but not before whispering, "Soon the child will choose. And when he does, the fate of all will be revealed." The palace trembled that night. Magic hummed in every wall, every floor, every spire. Lyra sat by Kale, holding him close as Elias and Aelric patrolled the corridors. Even Navara moved quietly among the palace wards, reinforcing the protections that had stood for centuries. Kale's sleep was restless. His small hands glowed intermittently, light rippling like water. Lyra whispered words of comfort, her heart heavy with fear and hope. "You are strong, Kale, stronger than anyone knows. We will face this together, I promise." Elias stroked Kale's hair gently. "You are our sun, our future, and our light. Nothing will take that from you." Outside, in the shadowed corridors, the enemy watched, patient and eternal. It had waited centuries for this moment, and now that the child had awakened, nothing would stop it from trying to claim what it believed was rightfully its own. The following day, the court sensed the disturbance. Objects trembled slightly, candles flickered, and a faint hum of magic ran through the palace. Nobles whispered anxiously, some frightened, others fascinated. Nivara addressed the council, her voice strong and commanding. "The child is under my protection. Anyone who seeks to challenge him or this family will answer to me. Do not mistake my patience for weakness." The council bowed, some reluctantly, but the tension was palpable. Outside the palace, shadows shifted, waiting for a moment to strike. Lyra took Kale to the gardens once more. "You are not alone, Kale," she whispered. "Your father, Aelric, and I, we are here, you are our light, and together we will face what comes." Kale's small hands glowed faintly as if responding to her words. Light shimmered across the flowers and the stone paths. Even the stars above seemed to brighten in acknowledgement. Aelric stepped forward. "He is ready to learn and to fight if necessary, but the enemy will test him. We must be vigilant." Lyra nodded, determination hardening her heart. "Then we prepare, and no matter what comes, we will not falter." That night, Lyra sat by Kale's bedside, her hand resting lightly on his glowing small hand. The palace was quiet, but the air thrummed with tension. Somewhere beyond the walls, ancient power moved, patient, waiting, hungry. Kale stirred, light shimmering faintly as he murmured in his sleep. Lyra leaned close. "You are our hope, Kale, and we will protect you even if the world itself turns against us." Suddenly, a gust of cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the lanterns. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. A voice, deep and echoing, filled the chamber. "Soon the choice will be yours, child. Choose wisely, for all will follow." Lyra's heart pounded. She clutched Kale closer. Elias and Aelric appeared instantly, weapons and magic ready. Outside, the palace seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the storm that was coming. Cliffhanger, Kale's small hand glowed brighter than ever, and for a moment the palace shimmered with his power. And in the shadows, the enemy's form solidified, silent and terrible, preparing for the confrontation that would determine the fate of Urindor, and the future of human and alien blood alike. The palace of Urindor trembled under the weight of approaching destiny. Magic surged through every stone and corridor, and the shadows of the ancient enemy crept along the walls like living tendrils. Lyra, Elias, and Kale stood together at the heart of the palace, their breaths synchronized, their hands intertwined, their hearts bound by love and purpose. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice steady but filled with tension. "The moment we have prepared for. Everything depends on Kale and on us." Elias tightened his grip on her hand. "We face it together. Nothing will break our family. Not now, not ever." Kale, small and fragile in appearance but glowing with a quiet, luminous power, looked up at his mother. His eyes shimmered like twilight, reflecting both fear and determination. Lyra knelt to meet him eye-wide. "You are strong, Kale," she said softly. "Your gift is ours to protect and guide. Listen to your heart and trust yourself." Kale nodded, his tiny hands glowing brighter as if responding to her words. A faint pulse of magic moved through the palace, and even the ancient wards seemed to hum in anticipation. Outside the throne room, the shadowy enemy moved silently. Its presence was more tangible now, a figure of darkness and power, ancient as the palace itself. It had waited centuries for this moment, its patience unmatched. Now it was time to claim the child who was prophesied to either destroy or save the royal line. The enemy's voice echoed through the corridors, cold and commanding. "Child of two worlds, your time has come. Choose your path, or I will decide it for you." Lyra felt a chill pass through her spine. "We cannot let it touch him," she whispered, turning to Elias and Aelric. "We must stand together, or it will tear us apart." Aelric nodded, sword glowing faintly, his stance ready. "Then we face it together." The confrontation took place in the Grand Hall, where ancient murals told the stories of the alien lineage, and floating crystals reflected the dim light of the twilight sky outside. Kale stood in the center, small but radiant, his glow pulsating in harmony with the magical currents of the palace. The shadow emerged, towering and fluid, a figure of darkness and malice. Its voice rolled like thunder. "The blood of your line calls to me." The prophecy cannot be denied. Hand the child over or face annihilation. Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between Kale and the shadow. "You will not touch him," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. "He is our son, our future. And we will protect him at any cost." Elias joined her, his human courage steady and unwavering. "We are stronger than fear. We are stronger than you." Aelric moved to flank them, his sword glowing with ancient runes. ready to defend the child with every ounce of strength he possessed. Kale's small hands rose instinctively, light flowing from his fingers in arcs of shimmering brilliance. The shadow recoiled slightly, recognizing the raw power within him. The battle was as much a struggle of wills as it was of magic. The shadow lashed out, twisting the air with dark energy, but Kale's light responded, rippling outward, shielding his family. Lyra and Elias worked together seamlessly, guiding him, supporting him, standing as anchors for his fledgling control over his own power. "Focus, Kale," Lyra urged, her voice calm but urgent. "This is your choice. Use your light not to hurt but to protect." The child's glow intensified, filling the hall with a radiant warmth that countered the darkness. The shadow shrieked, its form flickering as if it had never encountered resistance of this magnitude. "You cannot defy the prophecy," it hissed. "You will bring ruin upon all." Kale's eyes met his mother S, then Elias, and finally Aelric S. In that moment he understood. His power was not a weapon to destroy, but a force to heal, protect, and unite. He focused, and the hall shimmered with his light, casting the shadow into a form of containment. The enemy wailed, twisting and writhing, until finally, with a surge of brilliance from Kale, it was pulled into the void of ancient magic that had sealed it centuries ago. Silence fell. The palace trembled once, then stilled. Lyra dropped to her knees, holding Kale tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You did it, you saved us all." Elias knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "No, we did it, together." Aelric lowered his sword, bowing his head respectfully. "The child has chosen wisely. The prophecy is fulfilled, but not in the way the enemy expected. The power of love, courage, and unity has triumphed over darkness." Nivara entered the hall quietly, her eyes shining with emotion. She looked at her daughter, then at her grandson, and finally at Elias. For the first time, her expression was free of fear and doubt. She spoke softly, yet with strength. "You have all done what I could not, what I feared could never be done. Lyra, you have returned not just as my daughter, but as a queen in your own right. Kale, you are the hope of this kingdom. And you, Elias, you have earned your place among us." Lyra rose, holding Kale close. "Mother, I could not have done this without you, without your guidance, and without the trust we share now. Our family, our unity, it has given us strength." Nivara stepped forward, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "Then let the past be behind us. Let this kingdom see that human and alien, mother and daughter, father and child, together we are stronger than any curse, any enemy, any fear." In the days that followed, the palace began to heal. The wards stabilized, the shadows faded, and the factions within the court learned to accept the child not as a threat, but as a symbol of unity. Kale's power remained extraordinary, but under Lyra and Elias' guidance, he learned to control it, using it to nurture, protect, and inspire. Nivara stepped down from her strict authority, choosing instead to advise and support her daughter and her family. Her redemption lay not in ruling with fear, but in leading with wisdom, love, and courage. The court, once fractured by fear and suspicion, began to see the potential of coexistence, the strength that could come from unity. Lyra and Elias became not only protectors of their child, but symbols of hope for two worlds learning to embrace one another. One evening, Lyra walked with Kale along the palace gardens, the soft glow of lanterns reflecting in his eyes. "Mother, father," Kale said softly, "I feel strong, but I feel safe too, because of you." Lyra smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. "Yes, Kale, you are strong, but your greatest power is your heart, and with love, courage, and wisdom you can face anything." Elias kissed the top of Kale's head. "And we will always be here, guiding you, protecting you, and learning from you as well." Nivara joined them, standing quietly, her eyes reflecting both pride and a new understanding. "The kingdom is not just stones and magic," she said softly. "It is family, love, and unity. Today we have reclaimed what was nearly lost. Tomorrow we will build something greater." As night fell over Urindor, the palace glowed softly under the stars. The floating spires reflected the light of 1,000 lanterns, shimmering with magic and hope. Kale's small hands glowed faintly as he played with the magical currents of the garden, innocent yet extraordinary. Lyra watched him, her heart full. "We have faced the darkness, Kale. But this is only the beginning of your journey, and ours as a family." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes warm. "Whatever comes, we face it together, and now we are ready for it." Nivara stood beside them, silent, her heart finally at peace. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not through fear, destruction, or control, but through courage, love, and the strength of family. The palace settled into quiet harmony. The shadows were gone, the enemy banished, and the future of Urindor secure. Kale's power would continue to grow, but under the guidance of Lyra, Elias, Aelric, and Navara, he would be a force for unity, hope, and protection. The twilight sky glimmered with the promise of a new dawn. The kingdom of Urindor, once threatened by darkness and fear, was reborn, not just in magic, but in love, courage, and family. And as Lyra held Kale, gazing at the horizon where alien and human skies met, she whispered softly, "We have bridged two worlds, and together we will face whatever comes next. This is our beginning."